Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Casey, where we can get together for an hour once a month and talk about basically the real estate market, what's been happening, business in general, the economy, things like that. We can talk about new ways that people are buying houses. Last week I think we were talking about partnerships between parents and kids. Today we're going to tackle it's very, very important one, and that is the evolution of business, this business process, where we came from, how we got here, and what I'm going to define what here really is. First, I'm going to start with going back to the evolution of business. So my dad owned a sporting goods store called Samson Sporting Goods. They were in Arlington. They were the #1 sporting goods company. People would go from miles around just to get their shoes and bats and gloves and all that great stuff. It is the greatest store of all time. So basically the place to go. One day a kid walks into the store and he says, hey, the mother complains that our footballs cost $13.99. And so I complained to my dad. I said, Dad, she said our footballs cost, $13.99, and this new store called Herman's Atlas, they only cost $10.99. So Dad gave me $100. I said, good, go buy some because we buy them for $12.99 a ball. And at that time, on the drive from that store to Herman's Atlas, I realized this is a problem. This is a real problem. The evolution is that big companies take out the little companies. So these mom and pop great stores of all time were basically taken over by these monster companies like Herman's Atlas. Herman's Atlas, in turn, was crushed by a group called Sports Authority. Sports Authority came along, offered bigger, better, cheaper stuff. Boom, out goes Herman's Atlas. In comes Dick's. Dick's comes in. Now Sports Authority gets knocked out. So where is this headed? Well, I'm a football coach, and I looked at a kid who didn't have his football shoes on, cleats on, 2 days ago. I said, hey, kid, where are your cleats? Where are your cleats? He said, they're coming in the mail. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that Amazon is now attacking Dick's, okay? So the evolution goes from great mom and pop, bigger, cheaper, faster, bigger, cheaper, faster. So at that point, I always kind of kept my eye on the evolution of where everything was going. You can't sit and appreciate what you have. We were the most comfortable family in America, going to Fairfax Country Club and enjoying ourselves and the big cars, and everything was great. But, comfortable is not good. You have to constantly be looking over what's next, what's coming next. So I looked into this internet thing back in 1992. I heard about this thing called email or something like that. And before you know it, I was designing a site that today is kind of known as Lending Tree. So we got together with technicians from Fannie Mae, and literally people could go online, request a mortgage, and they would get bids from multiple lenders. And that was back in 1994 is when it eventually got launched. Lending Tree was launched in 1996. So now, let's go back to real estate. In 2002, Danny started this program, and he said he was going to do with Samson Properties, he was going to do 4.5% full service listings, not discount listings, but full service listings, because a listing would attract a lot of people that came in. This new thing, the internet, is bringing more people into houses. He had multiple reasons for it, but his model was 4.5% and cash back to people that were buying their houses. So as I was progressing in my career on the internet and doing all these things and learning how to do the marketing on the internet with Sports Combine, I kept an eye on Danny and Bernie, and they're sitting in this small little office over in Chantilly. And before you know it, Bernie does $30 million first year. Carolyn Capalbo comes along, $30 million her first year. There was another agent that came along, and one by one, everybody that came in had started doing this monster business, offering 4.5% full service listings. So in 2005, 2006, I kind of switched over to work with Danny on this company who's having huge success with these agents. And I would interview agents, and their thought process about joining a 4.5% was, why would I work for half the money and I got to do all that extra work? And I'm looking at their roster of how many listings they have done for the year, and they had done 2 listings in a year. And they're looking at me like, why would I work twice as hard? I'm like, well, you did 2 listings in a year. So how hard is that? So the theory that Danny had was, you know, you can capture more listings, you become more efficient with how you do it, yada, yada, yada. So back in 2002, now follow this. This is going to knock you right off your keister. In 2002, in the town of Vienna, the people that were offering selling agents 2.5% commission, and I'm going to explain commissions here in a minute. People that were offering 2.5% commissions to selling agents who sold their house, there was only 9% of them were offering that kind of commission. That was in 2002. Today, 60% of the listings in Vienna offer 2.5%. Now, to show you how widespread this is, a realtor who we've competed against for years and years would go in and say, you have to give 3%, you have to give 3%. And these are companies, you know, big companies, Long & Foster, not to pick on them, they're a great company, all the respect for them, but they would say, hey, you have to offer 3% to the selling agent. Well, 51% of their listings in Vienna offer 2.5%. So the evolution has gone from you can't offer that to yeah, half our listings are offering that. So in fact, in 2002, Danny started this revolution that has started with, you know, you got to pay 6%, you got to pay 6%, and Danny said 4.5% full service listings. Now, let me explain how listings work and how this, why you can do that kind of stuff. So when you list your house, you have to pay, basically, there's going to be two realtors. You've got a listing company and you have a selling company. And only in about 10% of the cases is the same company doing both sides. So, you know, you have a total commission of, let's say, back in the day, it was 6%. Then 3% would go to the selling agent, 3% would go to the listing agent. The listing agent would then split with their broker. So, you know, let's say half goes to the broker and half goes to the agent. On the selling side, it's the same way. Half would go to half would go. So as time goes on and we start evolving, there are new models coming out in the real estate market. No longer do brokers split the commissions with the agents 50-50. Some of them, Samson Properties is one of them, they don't take any commission. So if they don't take any commission to the top producers, that allows the top producer to offer the 4.5%. And by only giving 2.5% to the selling agents, which now 60% of the agents are doing, it allows sellers, how does this get to you guys? This allows sellers to only pay a total of 4.5% instead of, back in 2002, 6%. All right? Now, how big a deal is that? Well, you know, we did $2.25 billion of business last year, and Danny has gone from 2 guys sitting in an office over in Chantilly to, are you ready for this? The largest family-owned realtor in Northern Virginia. Let me stop for a second. The largest family-owned realtor in Northern Virginia. Now, can you imagine going from 2 guys in the office in 2002 with this idea of 4.5%, when every single agent would look at them and go, well, that's just discount. You get what you pay for. That's just. And so they were, as Bernie likes to say, they were like salmon. They're swimming upstream instead of swimming downstream. So they got a bunch of grief. They got a lot of aggravation. They have a lot of agents that you know, were angry because commissions are sacred. But that was the evolution of the real estate. So here we are today, whereas 4.5% is still competing with some that are 6%. But we already know that 51% of Long & Foster's listings are all offering 2.5%. So why the 6% anymore? So they are evolving. Slowly but surely things, they don't change, they evolve. So it goes from 10% or 9% offering 2.5% to selling agents to 60%. Now, are agents thrilled with that? No. My brother Pat will tell you. He goes, I just want to sell 3% listings. But guess what? We're going to sell whatever the client wants. The clients are online. The clients are on the internet. The clients are looking at the houses for their space, feature, function, location, lot. What are the upgrades of that house? And if that house is better than the other 4 houses, it really doesn't matter what they're shown. She's going to say, I want to see that house. And the buyer is going to decide on which home they're going to buy, not the realtor. So a realtor can facilitate a sale, a realtor can go out and show them the sale, a realtor can give them their impression of the sale. But, you know, the bottom line is that the commissions don't drive whether a house is sold in time or not. Let me give you a perfect example. I went to Great Falls. I did a listing appointment yesterday in Great Falls, where only 39% of their listings are offering 2.5%. So I said, okay, well, the ones that sold that offer 2.5% versus a larger portion that offers 3%. So the ones that sold 2.5 sold in an average of 50 days. The ones that offer 3%, average sale date was 90 days. So what does that tell you? It says that what you offer commission has absolutely nothing to do with how long it sits or how much you get. I mean, the faster they sell, the more you're going to get. And that's just the way real estate is today. So, you know, when we talk about the changes or the evolution, in my opinion, I think it started heavily in 2002. I think the concept Danny came up with was you know, and again, there are agents in Samson Properties, bless their heart, they're doing 6%. Now, who charges 6 and who gets more competitive? So and there are agents out there that have worked for 30 years, they have a nice clientele, they've sold their parents' house, they've sold them their house, they've done this for a long time, they charge 6%, and the seller wants to work with them, fine, they do that. They put in their time, they've cultivated this client over multiple years, they're absolutely due that money. So, you know, it's just not our model, it's their model. So, but if somebody's going to interview 2 or 3 realtors and they're looking for who's the best realtor, who does the best marketing, who does the best thing for the right, you know, the best commissions, then it's competition. Like I said, I'm a football coach, I like to compete. So, you know, it's wide open. So that's kind of how the business evolved from the little mom and pop sporting goods store all the way through Amazon. You know, the big eats the small. And in this case, the small ate the big. I mean, when you think about that, 2 guys that started this sitting in an office are now the largest. They have, how many agents do they have right now? About 1,900? 1,950 agents. 1,950 agents. And they buck the trend. So anyways, that's the way, in this case, it went the exact opposite. The small ate the big. So very, very impressive. So we've gone through the commissions, and you know, this is systemic. This is not just in Vienna or just in McLean. You know, Vienna's 59. When you get out to Oak Hill or out a little farther west, it's, you know, 65% of the listings are all offering 2.5%. So as far as that goes, you know, that's the change. It ain't coming back. It's not coming back because more and more people are trying to compete with that. Now, let's talk about individual agents versus a team. Because before, an individual agent would do most of their business. They'd have an assistant. The assistant did the paperwork, and the agent would do most of everything else. Not so anymore. And I'll tell you why. Because of people like Leslie, who are professionals at social media. People like Julie that are professionals at social media. People like Michelle that are communications experts, because now when a listing comes in, it has to go on 20 sites. It has to be prepared correctly. It has to have the right videos, the right this, the right that. There is geofencing right now. So one agent couldn't go to a seller and say, I can do all of that for you. That's just ridiculous. And you can't afford Julie or Leslie or Michelle, or you can't afford a back office unless you have a lot of business, 20 million, 30 million. We do $100 million a year in business, but that allows us to afford the best social media person, best communications person, the best alt agents that come in, and I'm going to talk about that here in a second too. But so all of these new ways of marketing houses. A realtor can't do it themselves. No matter how much I try and teach a person how to do that, it is a full-time job. Not only do you have to put it on, you have to boost it. And you have to boost it to the right target market. You have to know how to get to right the people. You got to get it on Twitter. You got to get it on Instagram. You have to get it on Facebook. You have to have it going right just to the right people. You have to make sure everything's accurate when they do go to that ad. So let me give you an example. Let's say I list a house on in Oak Hill, okay? Then I know Oak Hill, if you go 30 miles or 30 minutes to the east, that is their buyer pool. Whoever works in that area, that's their buyer pool. So 30 minutes to 45 minutes to the east of where you are living is normally where the buyer pool is. Why? Because they may work in, let's say they work in Arlington, okay? A house in Arlington for $750,000 is a condo. A house in Oak Hill, 30 to 45 minutes to the west, is a big, beautiful 2,800 square foot house with 2-car garage and a big yard and a great schools and a great swimming pool and all the rest of that stuff. So why do they migrate? They migrate because houses where they work are this big, houses of 30 minutes to 45 minutes are this big. Houses an hour and 10 minutes are this big. So my daughter Morgan came up with something. She said, well, why don't you create a page like, what can I get for $700,000? And that's what it was. It took you from Arlington all the way out to I think, Leesburg, Ashburn, or something like that, showing the evolution of how big these houses get the farther you go. So the rule is, if you were looking for a house to buy, and let's say Leslie is working in, I don't mean to keep singling you out, but let's say you work in Chantilly, okay? Well, what is 30 minutes to our west? What is 45 minutes to our west? The house you can buy out there is twice as big as the house you can buy here. So that's why there is a buyer migration that goes east to west, and you just got to know that. So when we do our social media marketing, we're marketing to people that work over there, not out there, but over there. We're going for families with a certain amount of kids, certain age. We're trying to target the women, not the men. We're doing, it's the same geofencing they did in the election, okay? You're trying to take your product and market it to the correct people. So, the days of having an agent do everything themselves, those are over. Those are just over. So we talk about the makeup of some of these teams, how these teams work. Well, there's a Redfin, and Redfin does one agent's going to do this, one agent's going to do this, one agent's going to do that. There's going to be a lot of agents involved, and they're paid. They're not on commission. They're just paid. So you have a lot of people you're working with. Well, my rub on that model is I want to know who's negotiating my contract. I mean, who is going to negotiate? We just had a deal where Colby Smith, we listed for $750 because that's all that house is going to appraise at. We knew that it was going to sell for more. How much more, we don't know, but we're going to find out. We put on the market. We start doing this and doing that. The contracts are coming in. We're getting them bidding up. We're bidding them up. We're bidding them up. We ended up on a $750,000 house at $820,000, all cash, no contingencies. Now, when I'm going to have my house sold and I need to know who's negotiating it, I don't want them to be on an hourly wage. I want to be the best damn negotiator in town. Somebody that works off our protocol of how we negotiate deals. So that brings us to, what I consider to be the most powerful thing about these teams is there should be a controlling agent that sets the protocol, sets the price, sets everything, sets the marketing strategy, meets with the seller, tells them what they need to do. That's me. You have an alt agent. The alt agent makes sure that every detail of that transaction is taken care of. Every contract follows the proper protocol. The inspections are done. If there's negotiation help they need, then I'm here. But that agent is a detail-oriented top producer. Colby, $10, $15 million a year. Kelly, $15, $20 million a year. Pat, been in the business 30 years. So my alt agents are the stars of the show, not me. I just like to hear myself talk. I mean, I'm really great at pricing, and I'll set the marketing strategy, and I don't think there's anybody in town better pricing than I am. And when I say 1.2 and they say 1.35, you can bet your tail in 8, 12, 15 months, it's going to eventually sell for under 1.2 where I said it was going to go at. So that's what I bring to the table is the negotiating and the pricing and all the rest of that stuff. But that alt agent is so key to the transaction that everybody loves Kelly or loves Billy or loves Pat or loves Colby, okay? Pam, Mooney, and Shayna are probably the best realtors in Northern Virginia. So when I turn over to them, I turn that over to the best. So when you're looking at these teams, it's not what 4 people am I going to be passed on to. It's who's my agent. Well, you got one agent that's running the show and pricing it and telling you what you need to do to get your house done. And let me tell you why this is important. Because I'm old. I'm old and I really don't care anymore. You know, I don't care about hurting people's feelings. I don't care about, you know, before it's like, oh, I can't tell this lady that her drapes are too big or that her bed is too big. You get to a certain point in life and you just say, look, I told a guy, I walked into, went up to his house to list his house, and he had a handicap ramp. It's a big, big, huge handicap ramp. All the other homes are doll houses. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And this got this big, not that it's ugly, but people don't want a massive ramp in front of their house. So, you know, when I walked in, it's like, hey, how you doing? You got to rip this ramp out. You know, before we got the hi, how are you? You got to take this ramp out. You got to make your house look as pretty as those houses. Because that's the truth. That's what's holding him back. His house withdrew after 6 months, and that's holding him back, okay? So when I tell somebody something, maybe Kelly at 20, well, I take that back. Kelly would tell him what she thinks. And but inexperienced agents may not tell you what they think and that you should do this or shouldn't do that. But in staging a house, you got to take this, you know, you got to get rid of the 1965 colors. You got to bring in the proper colors of today's buyers. You got to fix the window treatments the way the 32-year-old buyer is going to look for it. You've got to do certain things. So I guess when I say I don't care, the fact is I just tell it like it is, and if they don't like it, it is what it is. You know, I'll tell it as well as I can, but you've got to get that house in condition, and you've got to price the house right. Now, let me tell you, $25,000 overpriced ain't going to cut it. This market is tight. We're going to talk about the market here in a minute, but you know, the market is very tight. But when you're looking to bring in a realtor, and I can't cover all areas, you know, we don't cover all areas, but if you're going to interview agents, who's in control, who's setting the price, what's your experience, what's your track record? I mean, we did $100 million last year, and our listing sold at 100.1% of what we listed them for. We're not going to overprice a house. We list it right. If the market wants to bid it up, they can bid it up, okay? But we're going to list it at what it's going to appraise for, and then normally, if the house is more popular, it will get bid up. So, you know, and then you got to focus on who is going to walk me through this transaction. When I call somebody, who am I going to call, and how fast am I going to get a return call, okay? I'm about a 3-hour call back. Those guys are usually instantaneous. So when we talk about today's market, teams versus individuals, you know, and Kelly gives me a hard time because, you know, I am old school. I am an old guy, and, you know, I didn't like teams. I didn't want to be teams. I was pretty happy doing what I was doing. But then in came Kelly, and in came Pat, and then I wanted Julie, and we needed Julie. And then before you know it, you got to do more business if you want to afford somebody like Julie full time. So we brought on, you know, other people. Colby came to work with us, and before you know it, the team grew and evolved into a team that we could afford not only Julie but Michelle too. And now you've got a finely tuned machine, okay? So, and you know, that's why the teams are what they are today, and that's why this, you know, I'm a neighborhood person. I do 5 deals a year. Well, that neighborhood person at 5 years a year cannot afford the marketing push and, you know, how today's marketing is going. So you got to, I hate to say it, Kelly, you were right. Dad was wrong. You know, it's not the first time I was wrong. When Danny first told me 4.5% full service listings, I looked at him and said, man, you are crazy. I still put my name on that damn stuff, you know? And then you kept watching and watching and watching. You're like, oh, damn, this is pretty damn good. So anyways, when we price today, that has also evolved. It is not, hey, let's put it up here. Let's do a little wiggle room. Let me tell you how today's buyers think. Today's buyers are going to see your house before it even gets on the market. They're going to see it coming soon. They're going to have you teed up. They have Zillow or Redfin or MRIS or Realtor.com. They are locked and loaded. As soon as the house goes on that meets their criteria, boop, they get it. Boop. It's not the old school that we used to do where we throw them in a car and drive around and take a look at 5 houses. That ain't happening. Man, they're checking that thing immediately. On the first weekend, if we've hit the price right, 7 showings Friday, 7 showings Saturday, 30 people at the open house, 5 contracts on Monday, pick the highest and best. Whoever gets over, whoever's got the best financing, whoever's got the least amount of contingencies, that's who's going to get the house. That's today's pricing. We go over appraised value. I want to think it's maybe 40% of the time the houses sell over an appraised value. Now, as long as you can prove the value, and if you have multiple contracts, and if you have your, to combat that, we change the wording in our contracts that say, hey, no, we're not going to do appraisal at the sales price. We're going to do appraisal at the list price. Let's take the example, 820 and 570. Had that have financing involved, we would have marked the appraisal had to come in at 750 because that's what we listed it for, 750. Now they paid 820, but they said 820, not us. So they're going to have to come up with the rest of that cash. So, that's how today's stuff works. Put it at the list price. Let the fish jump in. Let them fight for it. Let them push the price up. Set the appraisal. And this is kind of a today thing. This is not a 7-year ago thing or an 8-year ago thing or 10 years ago. This is really relatively new because the buyers have become so smart that if they see this house that's on, so let's go over the evolution of the buyers. You have first pool. First wave is what I call them. Highest best buyers. Highest best buyers come flying in. They know what they're looking for. They start bidding it up. They've already lost a couple. They go and get it. Okay. If the first wave doesn't get them, then you have the comebacks. So 2 weeks later or 10 days later, the people go online and say, hey, that house didn't sell. Let's say it was on for $750. I don't want to pay more than $750, so I'm not going to get involved in all that fight over this house, fight at the bat rack stuff. So I was watching you type. Sorry, I'm live. No, that's okay. Are you live tweeting? It's like, I wonder what she's typing right now. You live. You knocked me right off my rail, man. And let me tell you something. That ain't easy. I pretty much stay on my rails pretty good, but you had me there. All right, live tweeting. That's okay. And let me tell you something. Okay, that's how professional. Let's just talk about this for a second. Remember where I said you got to be able to afford to have really good people. So as I'm on Facebook with Leslie, and I'm communicating with my buyers, it'll get taped and put into a thing and put on the website, and that's available. I literally have somebody sitting here who's taking the key points that I have and is live tweeting them, live tweeting those things out. Live tweeting. We're friggin' live tweeting, Now, who the hell's on Twitter? Well, let me tell you. The oldest school guy we have in here, the least technology guy we have in here is a guy named Bernie Kagan. Bernie Kagan is a pencil and paper, and for him, technology is an Excel spreadsheet. But she put something on Twitter. Bernie goes, hey, I see blah, 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 blah. I said, where did you hear about that? He goes, Twitter. Twitter? You're Bernie Kagan, for God's sakes. Well, he gets all his Nats feeds on Twitter. So even the older guys are still on Twitter. They're still looking for their news. That's the way they get their news. So the way people receive, I guarantee you before all this, he's a newspaper guy and that's it. But now you see even people like Bernie are online. So is it important to do the live tweets? Of course it is. I still forget where I was. The comebacks, thank you. So wave number 1 comes in. They're going to bid your price up. If wave number 1 takes a pass on it, it's because, it really wasn't worth more than what it was listed for. So So people double back in 2 weeks. And you may get one contract, you may get two contracts, but the double backs will come in. So you can't panic if you don't get a contract. You wait for the double backs, and then at 30 days, it's got to be 30 days, you re-examine comments, traffic, competition. Then you go back. If you have to reprice, you have to reprice. If you don't have to reprice, you don't reprice. 90% of the time, you have to reprice. It just means that we didn't hit that threshold. Now, last month, since we last met, in July, we normally do about $3 to $4 million. It's a very slow time period. Last month, we did, because now we're getting into the market. The last month, we did $15 million in business. We had $15 million in contracts come in. And I mean 1.85 millions, 1.45 millions, 1.4. It wasn't just a bunch of 600 and 700 and 800s. They were all over the place. Everything sold. We had out of, I'll tell you, out of 15 legitimate, we got two that I don't think, whatever. But out of 15 houses that were legitimate stud houses, 14 went under contract. Now, I'm going to work on the 15th because a parent is only as happy as their most unhappy child. So I'm only as happy as my most unhappy seller. So now we have to double back, and I got to fix that one. So you can't celebrate the 14 wins because you got one that didn't sell with the rest of them. It's like, gosh darn it, that was the best house of all of them. So the market update is, when you talk about the market, they say if your neighbor loses his job, it's a recession. If you lose your job, it's a depression, okay? So if my listings don't sell, it's a horrible market, and my listings all sell, it's a great market. But, I go in and I look at, our sales up or down and what percentage of the market is under contract. So let's talk about a strategy of what the market is right now and where we've been all year and where we are right this second. So the market, and, I vacation with somebody that's with one of the big companies and the real estate thing, and they say, oh, the market is way off, way off, way off. And I agree with them. The market has been way off. Now, that doesn't mean that it's terrible for sellers that are trying to sell. It just means that the amount of properties on the market is low and the sales are low. And so the sales are off, and you'll be reading about this in the newspapers. Sales are off 10, 15, 20, in some cases 40%. So in Vienna, over $1 million, the sales this month were 40% less than they were in July of 2017. So for some people, it's a depression, right? Well, it should be, but I don't feel a depression if we sold, 14 out of 15 of the listings. So, but in general, that market is soft. It's just not selling as much. So what does that mean to the person buying or selling in a market? The most important thing you want to be cognizant of when you're going into a market is how many of the homes on the market are under contract. Okay, so let's talk about strategy. And again, Vienna is just a target market for us. It's a general market. It's not Arlington and McLean. It's not Oak Hill. I think it's right in the middle. So if you were going under $1 million, how's that market look? Well, 50% of the houses under $1 million are under contract. Now, consider that 40% of the houses are overpriced and will never sell. 40% of the houses will withdraw unsold because they're just too far overpriced or they're in terrible condition. So let's throw those out. So let's say that, you got 50 under contract. So 50% of the 60% of the saleable homes are under contract. So what does that mean? Hot market, very hot market, very much a seller's market. You get close to 50 and you're in a pretty dang good seller's market. So what does that mean? Can you overprice it? No. But if you price it correctly, does that mean you're going to get a lot of traffic and multiple bids? The answer is yeah, probably. Yeah, just like that one house. And again, don't look at a 750 and say, oh, I'm going to get 820. That's not true. That was a weird situation. It had a weird lot. It was a tree house. It was very, 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 very unique. So here's a strategy for you. If the market on homes under $1 million are 50% are under contract, and they're going off the market like this. And the new homes only have 10% of the homes under market. Well, that'd be a great time to sell a $900,000 house and move into a $1.3 million new house because the market is soft there. And you're going from a seller's market, from where you're selling, into a buyer's market. So you're kind of benefiting from both markets. So you want to look at, am I thinking about moving up? Well, I'm pretty comfortable with a 3.5% interest mortgage, and then I have to go to a 4.25. Well, you know, you might want to think that sooner or later you're going to want to go to that bigger house, or your family's just growing into it. Oh, and don't forget for me to say something about hunting hills. Okay? I'm on a roll right now, so I want to stay on this. So the time right now for somebody to say, okay, I want to sell my 900 or my 800, I want to move up to the bigger house, that's a great time. So what you want to do is, when we go out, we would examine, do you want to move up? Let's see what that market looks like. Is that in a buyer's market or a seller's market? At least you can gauge it. So, you know, is there an opportunity in Vienna to sell a 850 or 900 and move up to that 1.2, 1.3, 1.4? Yeah, now's a good time to do it. Because you're selling in a seller's market and you're buying in a buyer's market, which is a pretty dang good deal. This house, we do, I don't know how many houses we do a year. Maybe, let's say we do 120 houses a year. I'm sorry, last year was 156, so we did 156. But our listing portfolio, okay, every once in a while we get this really, really cool house. And I was so happy that we've got it and we're going to list it and put it on the market. So let me describe this and who this is perfect for. It is in Oakton. It is, you know, a couple roads up off Marbury in Oakton, for those of you familiar with it. And it's a rambler, and it's a good-sized rambler. And the floor of the kitchen, family room, are the bricks from Union Station. They're 100-year-old bricks. And it is the most coolest looking setup you could ever see, with a sunroom and a beautiful lot. And sits up on a crest of a hill, and it's got a huge backyard. But I am telling you that is one of the prettiest houses. Now, is it for a family with 3 kids? No, but it's perfect for somebody moving down. If you have a 50-something couple, or you're a 50-something couple, and you're looking for about $1 million house or a $950,000 house, I would be hard-pressed to ever find anything like this again. It is so unique, you know, and it has all the updates anybody could hope for. But I will just say that I would call this a dollhouse in the middle of Oakton. So now what happened is, normally they'll take the manor house, which is a home that owns all the surrounding land, and they'll build all these big, beautiful homes around it. Well, that's what John Sekas did. He built all these big, beautiful homes around it. So in this $1.3 million neighborhood is situated the manor house. And this manor house, now, we've had them before in some other places, and they're old and, you know, a little, not exactly, what is it, the word I usually, functionally obsolete. They're usually functionally obsolete because they're just older. But this one is not. This one is perfect. They put in a brand new master bedroom suite that's gorgeous. It's the prettiest dang house. I think it has maybe 4 bedrooms, 3 or 4 bedrooms. But when I envision this house, I think it's perfect for a 50-something couple that, you know, has their kids and grandkids come over from time to time. But I don't think it's a house for, you know, four kids running around and all. But it's a 1-acre lot. It's a big lot. It's an open lot. But it's just really a cute house. It's on Hunting Hill, and I think we're going to go live with it 17th. What's today? Today's the 9th. Next Friday. Okay. So next Friday, that's coming on the market. You know, you really want to look for that house. I mean, we have some great houses. Another steal is, remember I said that one house that didn't sell, which I thought was the best house of all those? Okay. There's a subdivision that I used to take my kids to do, you know, when it snowed, we'd do the sledding down the hill. So it's called Sledding Hill now. It's on Hannah's Hill, and this road is Sledding Hill. When you drive down Hunter Mill Road, you'll see one house lit up in the whole subdivision. That's this house. So that house is sitting on the market. It's got a pool. It's gorgeous. It's 1.45. You know, if something doesn't happen within the next week, we may make a move on it. But if anyone's looking for something left in that 1.4, 1.45 range, you know, to me, you know, we sold 3 houses in the 1.4 range, and I'm like, wait a minute, that house was much better than the other houses. So not sure what happened there. But anyways, it's an absolute killer. So so I think that winds up today's show. I hope we're getting close to time. But, you know, it kind of tells you where we are today and how we got there, okay? How do we get where we are today? And we got there because in 2002, somebody said, you know, prices are up. This internet is bringing people directly to the listing agents. I think we should go at 4.5% full service. And I would like to calculate the money that taking a company and doing 4.5 full service, not cheap, not bad agents, not, you know, I'm talking about professional agents doing 4.5. I'd like to know how much money that has saved the public, because now, let me give you a quick one. Right this second, the sales in Vienna from the beginning of the time till now, if you look at the homes that sold at 2.5 instead of 3%, 59% of them. 59% of what sold is, you know, 400 million sold. If you take a 0.5 point of the ones that sold at 2.5, so the savings is $11.5 million. So the home sellers in Vienna that sold this year saved $11.5 million. And I can tell you, there's one guy that had more to do with it than anything, and that's Danny Samson. So that model worked. Now, it took professional agents, Bernie Kagan, Danny Samson, Scott Koval. It took all these really professional agents to make sure that that was implemented. But also those agents had to have the faith in Danny that this really works. Now, I had to see Bernie do it and Donnie do it and, you know, a bunch of people do it, and I was like, I'm in. I'm going after that. I can do that. So, anyways, but I would venture to say that, you know, the savings Northern Virginia wide, if Vienna did 11 million, then he's probably looking at, you know, $100 million in savings. $100 million in savings minimum by forcing into the market professional agents at 4.5%. So that's where we are. And sellers do not have to pay more than 4.5% because that's how we got here, okay? I hope this helps. I hope the conversation about the evolution helps. What's next? What is next for the real estate? Who the hell knows? But we got our ears out and our eyes out, and all I know is that, you know, when you keep professionals on like Leslie and Michelle and Julie, and they're constantly seeing what's bigger, what's better. By the way, our new website will be rolling out probably within the next 30 days, and it is a badass. So, you know, my daughter again came in and said, hey, your website is dated. And I took great pride in 2010. That was the best website going. But she's right. It's dated. It's 2010. So she pulled a Casey Samson on me. She said, it's dated. It just looks dated. You got to redo the whole thing. And so we turned around and did it, and it looks great. And she's right. And thank God we've got young professionals that are stepping in, the next generation, that are stepping in and even overriding the old coots like me. So if you have any questions, you can call me, Casey Samson, at 703-508-2535. You can catch me at casey@caseysamson.com or find us at caseysamson.com. You can go to the old site, still works, still ups, still gets through to me. So thank you for joining today. I appreciate your time. I know everybody's busy. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you got something out of my listing presentation I did for Samson Properties the other day. That's up on Samson. How do they find us? Samson University. So you go to samsonuniversity.net. Is that what it is? Go through the Cardinal Nest. Those of you here know what the Cardinal Nest is. I don't know it yet because I'm a little behind the times. You know it? Well, as long as you know it, then I know it. All right? So go on the Cardinal Nest, you can find all that stuff. So thank you, Danny. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Donnie. Thanks, everybody, for getting this thing going. Homeowners, you have a debt of gratitude to these people who really were pioneers in this, and I think the sellers are the ones that are reaping the benefits, and so are the agents. All right, we'll see you next month on Coffee with Casey. Everybody, have a great day.